I think I've got this right. The next three are hoping to come up together. Is that right, Grenville? Thank you. So that's 81, 38 and 16 you're happy to present together?
Yeah.
Good on you. Thank you.
I'll just introduce you. This is our shiny new co-chair, Louise Phillips, who will be reading Forest and Bird submission. This is my wife Sharleen, who is Forest and Bird Maori liaison and our national liaison person, and I'm the other co-chair. Forest and Bird will submit. We will make little comments where we might slightly differ on ours afterwards, and then we're open for a general discussion, if that's okay with you guys.
Kia ora, councillors.
Kia ora.
We choose option C if the RWSS goes ahead for the following reasons. If extra environmental flows are needed for rivers and streams, they should be supplied from the RWSS without cost to the general ratepayer. As the dam is to be wholly funded by public money and water is a public good, the Regional Council would be committing an ethical breach of contract with ratepayers by attempting to charge them for something they already have access to and have paid to store and distribute. We believe the $35.9 million purchase cost of water is only being done to make the RWSS more attractive to investors and to help get the project over the line. There is no other logical reason to explain this attempt to charge ratepayers for a public good, which should be flowing at an ecologically sustainable rate. The question councillors willfully ignore is, why have the natural flows within our waterways reduced to the point where we are contemplating supplementing them? Council instead need to A, undertake an audit and reallocation of current consents, and B, implement minimum water uptake land use criteria in their consenting processes. Our main reasons for not wishing to get the RWSS over the line are documented, so I will leave those as stated in our written submission. The next part of our submission is the proposal's impact on Lake Whātuma. If Lake Whātuma were to get RWSS water, there's no plan or costings as to how that is going to happen, and therefore what the impact on ratepayers would be. There is no guarantee that a water contract would or could be renewed in 35 years' time. Similarly, there is no guarantee of potential water price at the time of renewal. Should the lake's ecosystem have become reliant on flows for its sustainability, then ratepayers, or more correctly the children of current ratepayers, would essentially be price takers. The dam has a finite life, so this is not a long-term solution. Moreover, in the event of an unforeseen circumstance or act of God, such as a major earthquake, during the life of the dam, flows could be cut without warning, with detrimental effects on the lake and surrounding ecosystem, and with no immediate remedial solution available. There may not be enough water to supply the lake and irrigation in the same feed pipe. There has been no work done on this, and in the event of a possible supply shortfall, could be to the detriment of the lake and the surrounding ecosystem. With so much detail missing and no urgency, as the actual use for this water is undetermined, there should be no pressure to include this in the 2015-2025 long-term plan. Council need to undertake more work on this proposal and then present it to ratepayers as part of a more informed and consultative process. Alternative proposals. We advocate another option that would be more efficient, both economically and as a long-term environmental solution. Replace existing sills with a fit-for-purpose floodgate at the outlet of Lake Whātuma. Gradually, over time, raise Lake Whātuma to its pre-lowered level and by the way of water storage over winter, using catchment runoff, thus increase the depth of the lake over summer. Slow modification of the lake levels is to allow the adaptation of bittern habitat and maximise the viability of the wetland ecosystem. Hawke's Bay Regional Council could work with local stakeholders to bring Whātuma's footprint and a marginal strip around the edge into public ownership and or achieve protection status. These combined actions would mean A deeper lake that should have a lower temperature and therefore may have less water loss through evaporation. B, a financial saving by not having to purchase water. Some of this money could be used to return the lake into public hands and secure the margins. No engineering, planning and implementation costs in getting water into the lake. This solution goes beyond the 35 years or the life of the dam. It is a long-term, least-cost, sustainable solution which provides for a healthy lake and ecosystem for the benefit of future generations. Will improve Lake Whatuma's conservation status. Raising the lake will restore its mauri, which has been disregarded and eroded since the Europeanisation and associated land use within its catchment. Having Lake Whatuma in public hands opens the possibility for the Tai Whenua o Tamatea to have guardianship over the lake. Guardianship would recognise the multi-generational sorrow and pain Tai Whenua o Tamatea has suffered through involuntary loss of the lake. In addition, Maori kaitaaki values and generational mātauranga of the lake and its surrounding ecosystem make them the logical guardians of this precious taonga. In local accordance with the aims of Plan Change 6, restoration of Lake Whatuma as a natural wetland habitat should proceed whether the RWSS goes ahead or not. The Regional Council are to be commended for opening up this long neglected local issue for public debate. As regarding the supplementary Regional Council staff, we also endorse point 1 proposal that additional staff be employed to assist in the implementation of Plan Change 6 requirements. Under this point, we also submit that some of the $35.9 million could be spent employing additional staff to work on monitoring and compliance regimes that will be needed to implement Plan Change 6 effectively. This will also ensure the changed land use arising from the availability of water from the dam, if proceeded with, conforms with Plan Change 6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Look, we're really pleased that Whatuma is on the stage, and we would like it to be in the spotlight. It's been a love lake, but much neglected. It has, on paper, in theory, high conservation status. In practice, that's not demonstrated, and we would like to stay on focus. I can recommend, if you're genuine about Whatuma, this is a Regional Council report, 1999-2004. It's then, at that stage, it's called Lake Whatuma rather than Whatuma. It's a management plan, so Lake Whatuma Management Plan 1999-2004. And the only point I've really highlighted in here, but there's a huge amount of information in here, was basically that lake was lowered about a foot in the 1970s. Since then it's dried out twice, and so, as I say, we urge catchment. Sharleen, you got any comments?
Yeah, I've heard the swimmable word mentioned a few times.
Can we have the microphone on, please?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you.
I've heard the swimmable word mentioned a few times. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, the best way of making rivers swimmable is to do decent wastewater management, not allowing wastewater pollution, and also not allowing nutrient pollution to enter the river in the first place. If we're going to be honest about working on Plan Change 6, then that's supposed to gradually happen anyway, so you shouldn't need these extra environmental flushing flows. The other point about deepening the lake, if we were to do it catchment wide and a catchment way, deepening a lake actually inhibits warmth and light, which is one of the things which also stops algal bloom. That's probably all I need to add.
Questions, please.
Questions, okay. Right, where do we go? Who wants to start? Start for 10, Councillor Scott, then Councillor Barker.
I'll start. If we took all farming out of the district and just looked at that river as it would be in the future under climate change, what are we going to see of it in summer? And would you not have a build-up of algal bloom simply because of the low flows and it's there naturally? It's in the headwaters. There are natural nutrients in the water.
Well,
so what would the river look like under climate change, and how would you address that?
First of all, algae blooms, or algae growth, let's look at that. Light, warmth, flows, nutrients. And the proposal seems to me that it's flows versus reducing nutrients. And Forest and Bird is quite prepared to go back and look at reducing levels of nutrients. I know at the Board of Inquiry we were talking 4.4. Your staff mentions 0.2. We could start at 4.4 and work down. Environmental flows or flushing flows really depends on their size and how strong they are. And I pick up the point of an earlier submitter, is that perhaps there won't be enough water actually when you want it to flush it naturally, because the dam will be retaining that. And furthermore, algae blooms can spontaneously come about within a week. So unless we're going to have flushing flows every week, our only real choice is to reduce nutrients. Now, they're doing this in Taupo. They're reducing nutrients so the lake doesn't get polluted, and I would advocate we have a similar approach if we're seriously about looking at a long-term solution for the river and for farming. Farming has to change. It can't rely on what it's been relying on, and that would be my answer.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
I see your submission says that you prefer option C, which is in line with over 95% of the other submitters. What would you think of this council if it decided to ignore the overwhelming majority of the submitters and turns back on option C, which you prefer?
What would be my view?
Yeah.
My view, it'll be a 5-4 vote, which basically has, up until now, seemed to ignore the overwhelming view of submitters. I believe for this council, it will reopen another can of worms, which is about transparency and democracy.
Councillor Belford.
Normally when this council addresses problems to be solved, it looks at, insists on looking at a variety of options and vetting those thoroughly and coming to a conclusion about which one might in fact be the best one. You have advanced an alternative for the lake in particular here, which is actually totally consistent with Nikki, for example, their view of what should happen. Would you think it's imprudent for us to make any kind of commitment on this before we actually understand what the best resolution of the problem might be?
Do you want to answer that?
I think it would be prudent. I mean, we're not scientists, and it would be a good option to look at all the different ways in which Lake Whātuma can be, get some scientists and get some engineers or whatever is involved, and actually really look at what is the most effective, and I mean, cost obviously has to be taken into account. What will actually work. We've got limited what we really care about the lake, but our understanding of the ecology and water flows and catchment and things it requires people with more knowledge than what we have, and due diligence needs to.
So, and similarly, going beyond the lake itself and that whatever piece of this 36 million that would involve, you also seem to be saying that $36 million is a lot of money to commit without knowing really what kind of mitigation activities should be supported, whether it's more land managers to help farmers deal with their farming properly versus flows versus nutrient. I mean, it would seem like you feel $36 million needs to be more intelligently vetted across the board in terms of how it might best be used to address this suite of issues. Is that correct?
Yes. I think, there seems to have been, to me, a rush to put these environmental flows in. I mean, even if the dam was to be built tomorrow, it's still 5 years away from that water even being available for environmental flows. So why are we rushing into this now without due consideration of where that money might be better spent to benefit the environment?
Thank you. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, and good morning. Louise, my question is for you, and I'm picking up on your paragraph 11, where you speak of the sorrow and pain of the tamatea tai whenua. And I'm wondering, is this forest and bird submission made in conjunction with the tamatea tai whenua? You can host it.
No, it's not, but we've attended, I personally, when the local hapu down there featured on TV several years ago, saw that presentation. I've read the history in this report, and I've heard personal presentations, and we were all there. And anybody without a heart would not see the injustice and grievance that those people have suffered. Those people who belong to that lake. And I guess part of that affects us as much as the environmental issues in this lake. And for us, we would like to see that whātu mā put first for a change. Whātu mā has always been put in the back seat to various other interests. And with the right scientific approach, with the right engineering, I believe that we can actually put whātu mā first and satisfy some of those justifiable grievances. People have said, oh, these people have got a treaty claim, they should be happy, but anybody who knows anything about the treaty process knows it's only about 1 or 2% of what the real debt is. It's a case of a bird in the hand rather than a bird in the bush.
We were also privileged to be part of a presentation by the tai whenua on the history of the lake, and that's what came through for us and for them. I realise that within the tai whenua there's different ideas about how the lake could be improved or which paths they would like to take, but the history is the same.
Do you realise, though, that the chair of Tamatea, well, I think he's still the chair, but he's certainly the representative on the Regional Planning Committee in his own right, to be very clear on that, he's not writing on behalf of everyone else, is actually voting in favour of A? Do you realise that?
Yes, we are. That's exactly why I said what I just said.
Yeah, okay.
Because the Tamatea is a large body of people, and they're also part of the whole of Ngāti Kahungunu Inc. as
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah.
So there are disagreements within the rohi about which path to take.
Thank you.
Just
Which is your right.
Yeah, I mean, our bottom line is that the lake be put first.
Councillor Dick, I'll be back. Relax.
Thank you. In your submission 81, page 72, talking about minimum flows and with the assumption that these supplementary flows should not be purchased and that there would be no supplementary flows released from a dam, you've said, Council indeed need to A, undertake an audit and reallocation of current consents, and B, implement minimum water uptake land use criteria in their consenting process. Now, indeed, we will need to do something like that without some form of stored water for supplementation of flows. Do you think decimation of the rural economy of the Tuki catchment with flow-on effects to food processors in terms of the disruption to the regional economy, do you think it's a price worth paying?
Well, I'd challenge that assumption, because that is only an assumption. I mean, I've seen people talk about the great potential, in fact, you know, as one of the sales pitches now for the Ruatanapa water scheme, is grapes. Now, we have some successful grape growers down there on the plains who produce very, very good grapes. Grapes use about, a poor producer might use at a max 4 litres per litre of water, whereas what has been encouraged and has caused over allocation is intensive farming, which is, you're talking about, well, Nick Smith talks, we're talking dairy, 800 litres, so he's at the bottom end. Other people go 1,200 litres of water per litre of product. So I would really question those assumptions you're saying, right? It depends on how we're using water, what we prioritise water for, and how far can that water go. Are we better to put the investment into the Hiratonga Plains where you've got a deep soil and it's going to have better water retention, and stick to dry land farming in Central Hawke's Bay?
Councillor Bevan.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for coming up today and presenting your submission to us. There's a number of submissions that are quite similar to each other in the sense that submitters who are opposed to the dam and therefore they're opposed to the environmental flows being purchased, and it's difficult to know whether they're opposed to the environmental flows because the council's paying for them or proposing to pay for them or for other reasons. So my question to you is, if the dam does go ahead and there's water available, if the council was able to obtain that water not by paying for it but by taking a lesser dividend stream from its investment in the dam, would you want to see us take it on that basis if the dam goes ahead?
Well, I can only answer as Grenville Christie and not for Forrest and Baird here. Personally, what that really says to me is that the price of water isn't reflecting the realities of what it really costs to deliver water to that farm. And I'm saying that the price of water is subsidised, and the dam is supposed to be, if it were to go ahead, to provide environmental flows, and that should, in my opinion, should be a priority. And so, to me, I think as ratepayers, 80 million if this goes ahead, 120 million, and then if ACC comes in as taxpayers, I think the people of New Zealand and the ratepayers of Hawke's Bay are chucking enough into the pot, and who pays for it really is about who sits around this table and who sits in government. That's my personal view.
One of the things that I put in mine, which I didn't feature, but I'm personally opposed to the Port of Napier being used as collateral, and also for any dividends from there to be used for purchasing water. As far as I'm concerned, all the areas around here already have high needs for that money, the dividends from the port. The city councils have sort of infrastructure problems. The regional council has everything to deal with in the environment, and that money could be used better in those areas.
Thank you for that. You made mention on your way through that the issues with let me try to get it, Fatuma is old habits die hard. Sorry about that. But anyway, the problems with it are associated with the decision to reduce the lake level, presumably to reclaim land. Now, what it seems has been proposed here is to spend $36 million for over a 35-year period to put more water in to compensate for that act. But nothing was going to happen after the 35-year period. We're back to where we were again. Wouldn't it be more sensible to look for a long-term enduring solution which saw some ways of restoring the lake levels to what it originally was? Because it seems unlikely that you can lower a lake and expect it to be in the same state it was before.
Well, that is exactly our point. The problem with this thing is this scenario put forward, it is short term. As I said before, since that lake was lowered, it's dried out twice. If we rely on catchment, it kind of solves the problem, doesn't it? It's the wetlands, it will vary up and down. I totally agree with what you say, really.
Just to follow up on that, though, and unfortunately we can't ask Mr. Chain any more questions because he's had his go, but if it was as simple as that, why hasn't it not already happened? What do you think has been the stumbling block?
Well, the answer is pretty much, when you look through this, it's always been an argument between various interest groups, but nobody's actually, other than probably Hamlet Whenua, actually said, well, the lake should itself have a voice. And because without proper fit-for-purpose flood control gates, the problem is you've got to get it, when at times of high rainfall, you've got to be able to get that water out so it doesn't flood too greater of the surrounding land. Okay, but basically the tussle is between the landowner's desires and basically what would be good for the lake. What we're saying, as I say, with a fit-for-purpose flood control, I mean, you've got to do some more research. This is just me reading through old reports and thinking about it. But basically, we're talking winter storage, which everybody here is very, very familiar with. And this is how this lake has always operated, but it struggles now because it's been reduced to such a level that come summer, well, it just gets too low. And so, obviously, when you read through this, they talk about if regional council puts money in, and that, I presume that would be even if you bought water for that lake, it has to get protective status to protect its investment. And protective status are things like Queen Elizabeth trusts. Some people might surrender land for reserves. Some people possibly might want some sort of tax rebate. There's a whole raft of tools to actually have protective status of that surrounding land, which basically the regional council was invested in. Look, it's a tricky one, but a tribunal at a stroke of a pen dropped that lake by a foot. In reality, a stroke of a pen could raise it again. It just needs to be handled with delicacy and research. The outflow has to make sure it isn't blocked, it can carry that line. I understand, carry the water away. I understand if there's the willows along where the stream flows into Lake Whātua Mā, that causes flooding because it slows that water coming in. So there's a whole package which needs to go around this thing. But to me, it is the only sensible, long-term, enduring solution. I mean, otherwise, I mean, those people have been waiting 160 years for justice on their lake. In 35 years, will be up to about 200 years back to situation one. So in sympathy for them, I think it's the right way, and as a person who feels for the environment and the importance of the environment, I think this is a better long-term solution.
And also, the interests of the landowners, there are various ways that landowners could be compensated, or like in the form of rebates or whatever they might want. And some landowners we've spoken to might even gift that area and be prepared to have it flooded occasionally.
Who owns the lake bed?
Sorry?
Who owns the lake?
It's
The bed?
It's a company, a collection of people own it. I've got it here, a holding company. Can I just ask John he's got the tip of the stick. Duck shooters, okay?
Yeah, very quickly, 220 hectares of lake and surrounding swamp. Roughly a third owned by DOC on the western side and Crown land. The majority of the other 2/3 is owned by a private syndicate of waterfowl hunters, LH Holdings.
That's it.
The other bit is part of basically 20-acre blocks that run off Racecourse Road.
Yeah.
That's it.
Did you have your hand up? Got a couple of minutes left.
Okay, I did. It sounds like we're talking about building a dam, interestingly, Grenville.
How's that?
Yes. So just on to the water contracts and there's assertions in Louise, your Forest and Bird one, and also Grenville's report that the contracts will not be renewed after 35 years, or there's no guarantee. Are you aware, as foundation water users under the current constructs, that they will be renewed after 35 years?
That may have slipped my notice, but it doesn't really change the fact that the land has a finite life, and then we're right back to square one. We're just passing that problem down the line. Now, this has always been a knotty one, and I'm really pleased that through the work of John, and I know Debbie's taken an interest, that Whātua Mā is on the stage, and Forest and Bird would really love it to be under the spotlight. Because, as I say, it has high conservation status on paper, but in practice they are sadly lacking.
The name translates Whātua Mā as clear eye, which is kind of laughable if you look at it these days.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. You have mentioned twice that there's no hurry to rush into this, and should there be a need in future for environmental projects and the water be needed. So if that water was available but had reached full uptake before you started out in the future, finding that climate change was driving the need for more water in summer, would you then be supporting buying that money on the spot market at a higher price? Is that, you did say if it's going to be needed in the future, so how would you see that funded?
When we're referring to it not being needed in the future, that was more around why are we concerned about this amendment now to the long-term plan when we've got at least 5 years before this, even need to do more research into where this, what would be the better way or how, or if environmental, if the flow's putting water in rather than the catchment. Okay, if scientists might come along and say, well, we actually need to put more water in, there's not enough water in the catchment, if you raise the sills it's not going to work, that's then we have to look at it. But
Right.
what I'm saying is why we have to put this option in now when we haven't actually looked at the
Thank you.
science.
I think you've got us there. Thank you very much for your idea, Grenville. I'll give you the
No,
credit
no,
for that.
it's our idea.
Have it coming together, and as a wool grower, I commend you for wearing a swan dry. They last for years. Everyone should have one. Telling you all to go out and buy
Merino
one.
underneath, bro.
Merino underneath. I've got merino on too. Good on you. Thank you very much. We'll be deliberating tomorrow. So thank you.